Hey friends, welcome to today's video. Today is going to be the greatest day of your life. You know, I was approached by somebody who's actively watching videos on the channel here, and they said, Doug, you know, disagreements are just a normal part of life. And I can't always, in the kindest and nicest way possible, escape a given conversation to go take a deep breath, read my goal card, refocus my supercomputer, and get back on track. And I thought about that for a little bit, and I thought, well, disagreements are inevitable in any human interaction, whether at work, at home, or with friends, and how you handle them can make a big difference in your relationships, your well-being, and your emotional intelligence. Now, in some previous videos, I had discussed emotional intelligence, and emotional intelligence, just to remind you, is the ability to understand and manage your own and others' emotions, and to use them effectively in various situations. So I want to discuss a little bit how to constructively handle disagreements when we can't just always walk away in the kindest and nicest way possible, read our goal card over and over again, take a big deep breath, refocus our supercomputer, and then actively re-engage. So before, even if you can, engage in a disagreement, take a moment to check in with yourself and identify what you're feeling. Now, are you angry, frustrated, hurt, or scared? Or are you curious, confident, or compassionate with the circumstance? Now, naming your emotions can help you calm down. It'll also help you gain some clarity and avoid reacting impulsively. We want to avoid that impulsive reaction where we're just, coming right back at them, And it can also help us communicate our perspective more respectfully and empathetically. So think for a moment, how do I feel about this conversation? How do I feel about this topic? Based on your understanding of your emotions and your beliefs regarding the topic the disagreement is about, you either need to exit stage left, or this is something I can't deal with, or this is something that I can take an active and participating voice in this conversation, and I can de-escalate. And that's de-escalation is always the main goal, right? So how would we do that? Well, I tell you what, one of the most important skills in handling disagreements, in my opinion, is active listening. This means paying attention to what the other person is saying without interrupting, judging, or dismissing them. It also means that you're showing interest and you can ask questions and reflect back on what you heard. But listen actively, and it can help you understand the other person's point of view, their emotions, and their needs. It can also show them that you respect them and value their input. So you definitively want to be an active listener. Remember, highly intelligent individuals actively listen. We want to understand the point of view of the other individual. There may not even be an issue here. There may be nothing to disagree about. So listen to their point of view and what they have to say, because what they have to say has value, and we want to show them it has value. And by doing that and understanding where they're coming from, we have the ability to respond in an intelligent way by asking questions about what their concerns are, so on and so forth, okay? Another thing that active listening is going to allow you to do, it's going to allow you to express yourself assertively. Now, I believe that expressing yourself assertively is very important when you get into a disagreeing conversation. And this means stating your thoughts, feelings, and needs clearly, honestly, and respectfully without being aggressive or passive. It also means using I statements. I statements, you've heard about those, right? And we've talked about that in some previous videos. Rather than blaming or accusing the other person. For example, instead of saying, you always ignore me, you can say, I feel hurt when you don't pay attention to me. And expressing yourself assertively can help you avoid resentment, defensiveness, and misunderstandings. It can also help you reach a mutually satisfying solution, right? So when you're not coming at them and saying, you do this, you do that, and then they come back at you and say, you do this, you do that. With compassion, we have an ability to say, hey, you know what? I understand what you're saying, but I feel that when you do this specific thing or when you say this specific thing, it hurts me, and I just want you to know that. And that's a great way to de-escalate, because the other person may not even know that what they're doing is hurting you right now because they're angry. They're focused on themselves and their own emotions. It makes it difficult to come back at you. When you say to somebody, hey, I feel hurt when you say these types of things to me. Well, most rational and sane people aren't just going to keep coming at you with that same type of behavior. They can have empathy with you and understand your point of view. So that's a great way to escalate. Also, what it'll allow you to do is to seek some common ground, right? When you disagree with someone, it can be tempting to focus on the differences that you have and the conflict. But this leads to a win-lose or a lose-lose scenario. And I want to tell you something. If you actively have arguments with your family, meaning your spouse and your children, I want you to know that they're your home team. And as a team, when you actively win an argument with somebody on your team, they lose. And when one person on your team loses, you all lose. So I want you to think about that next time you get into an argument with somebody on your home team. Make sure you try to attempt to seek some common ground where it's a win-win situation, because when somebody on your team wins, you win too. And that's what we want, right? We want to support each other and care about each other. And when it comes to our families, we want to love each other, right? And that's the most important thing. So, one thing about seeking common ground is it can help you build rapport, trust, and it teaches your children and your spouse and other friends around you that you're willing to cooperate. If you could find a win-win solution where you both feel heard, respected, and you both leave the conversation satisfied, that's the best circumstance, and that's what we're working towards here, right? Now, disagreements can also be stressful and emotionally draining, especially if they're frequent, intense, or unresolved, right? So if you leave a circumstance unresolved, you're going to need to learn to manage your stress, because it'll drain you over the course of days. You see, when we have those hurtful things that are said or stated, or unresolved circumstances with those we love or care about, our supercomputer continues to try to work on that program, even though we may have actively walked away with it, or walked away from it, So it's important to manage your stress and take care of yourself. Now, this includes taking breaks, or as we've discussed, taking some deep breaths. Maybe you could go exercise for a little bit, or meditate, or do something that relaxes you. Relaxes you. That'll allow you to manage your stress and help you to stay calm, rational, and positive. And when your mind is feeling rational and you have a positive outlook, it'll help you. It'll help reduce some of the negative health impacts, as it relates to the stress that comes from arguing with others and having disagreeing conversations. I grew up in a household where it was an argument after argument. We just all never seemed to get along. And, when I became a father and a husband, one of the things I just told myself, you have to learn how to actively engage with those in your home, on your home team, because that's where the wins are going to come from. There's power in being good to your family, and there's power in being part of a family circumstance where you're all supportive. And that's the type of environment that I wanted to have. And you know what I say, if you want to change your life, all you got to do is change your life. So we actively engage in constructive conversations in our home. They're not always agreeable. Sometimes we do disagree, but we attempt to find win-win situations. And after you handle a disagreement, I think it's important that you learn from the experience. So take some time to reflect and learn from the experience and ask yourself, what went well? What could have been improved? I sometimes when I'm dealing with my children and I have teenager and one that's about to be a teenager. They want to disagree with everything I say, right? Because they know it all, and it's difficult sometimes. So I always like to think back on the conversation we just had. I know that it's an active conversation that may come up again. Kids just want to rehash the same thing over and over again sometimes. So what did I learn about myself and how I handled the situation is something I think about. How did I grow from that conversation? And I just try to learn from the experience because it helps me improve my communication with my kids, with my spouse, and with my friends around me. So I always want to make sure that I kind of review the circumstance to a certain extent, figure out what I can take away from it, and how I can better actively handle that conversation should it come up again. And the thing is, we just do the best we can. I always think that avoiding confrontation is the best way to handle confrontation, but that's not always possible, right? Sometimes people they're hell-bent on coming at us and they want to just disagree and they actively want to be a part of that negative circumstance. Remember, we take the higher ground. We want to stay positive. We want to actively listen to them, and we want to learn from the experience, okay? Some people we just need to avoid. They're just negative, and all they want to do is argue. And I want to tell you, sometimes when you lose people in your life, it's not always a loss. And I know I've said that before. But, if you have somebody in your life that's just constantly dragging you down, constantly trying to argue with you about everything, and is just a negative Nelly, at that point in time, maybe it's time to remove yourself from that circumstance and that relationship. Get some better people around you. That's always an option as well. Listen, friends, don't quit. Never give up. I believe in you. I know you can do it. And I care about you. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'm going to come at you tomorrow with some really good stuff, okay? Take care.